Netanyahu and the Israeli government generally are taking the mask off. Israel considers full Gaza takeover as more die of hunger. You know, they hadn't been thinking about that before. They hadn't been conducting the war with that aim before. This just occurred to them. This is Bet Salem. This is a little edited. If you want to see the full thing, you can go online and check out their video. They are an Israeli human rights organization that came out and stated that Israel is committing a genocide. We just cut out some explosions because we can't show that on YouTube. Other than that, everything's in here. Start that over. Gaza will not look the same. Gaza will not look the same, and whoever remains will understand very clearly. I had to cut a little bit. You don't do something like this to the state of Israel. There are no uninvolved civilians. There are no uninvolved civilians. This is what they're singing. We will exact an unbearable price. We are going to finish Gaza off and resettle. Sorry, the Israelis are always too fast for us. And resettle Gush Katif, a Jewish settlement in Gaza. There's a very, very important message here. So this is, I had to cut this out. They blow up an ambulance, and over it is one of their military leaders saying a hospital is not the safe place. So this is sending that message. Let's go destroy Rafah. And chanting, we won't give up until this village is wiped out. Gaza will be annihilated. You wanted hell, you'll get hell. Okay, so this is not some new plan they're coming up with to take over Gaza. This was always the plan. They would never have conducted this war this way if they planned on Palestinian people being able to live there.
Right.
They made it uninhabitable quite intentionally. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu favors a complete military takeover of Gaza for the first time in 2 decades, media reported, and was to meet senior security officials on Tuesday to finalize a new strategy in the 22-month war. Mediation between Israel and Palestinian militant group Hamas has collapsed despite intense international pressure for a ceasefire to ease hunger and appalling conditions in the besieged Palestinian enclave. 8 more people died of starvation or malnutrition in the past 24 hours, Gaza's health ministry said, while another 79 died in the latest Israeli fire. Netanyahu was to meet Defense Minister Israel Katz and Military Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir to decide on a strategy to take to cabinet later this week, an Israeli official told Reuters. Strategic Affairs Minister Rob Dermer, a confidant of Netanyahu, would also be present. Israel's Channel 12, citing an official from Netanyahu's office, said the prime minister was leaning towards taking control of the entire territory. That would reverse a 2005 decision to pull settlers and military out of Gaza while retaining control over its borders, a move right-wing parties blame for Hamas gaining power there. They don't mention that Netanyahu actually funded Hamas through Qatari intermediaries so that the Palestinian Authority would not gain power, forcing the question of a Palestinian state. It was unclear, however, whether Netanyahu was foreseeing a prolonged occupation or a short-term occupation aimed at dismantling Hamas and freeing Israeli hostages. The Prime Minister's office did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the Channel 12 report. So this comes even as over 600 retired Israeli security officials have called on Trump to make Israel end the genocide. This is from the Jerusalem Post. 600 members of the Commanders for Israel Security, consisting of former senior officials from the IDF, Mossad, and Shin Bet, have written a letter to President Trump urging him to pressure Benjamin Netanyahu to stop the war in Gaza due to Israel's desperate situation regarding global legitimacy. Now, note, they don't say end this because it's a genocidal horror. They say end this because it's costing us legitimacy. Remember, these are intelligence people. They have their ear to the ground. They see how hard this is making it for people in their line of work to propagandize the rest of the world into throwing up its hands and saying, it's complicated. Those people have been fighting for thousands of years. They see they're losing the Hasbara war the longer this war goes on. They don't say this is inhumane. They say it's costing us global legitimacy. And to that point, Peter Dow posted this. Let's be very clear. Huge numbers of Israelis are openly genocidal. So when Bernie and other Dems try to pin everything on Netanyahu, they're bullshitting you. Yes. And what he posted here is from a poll that made the rounds a couple weeks back. Support for forced expulsion of Gaza residents. This is from March 2025. 82% supported forcibly expelling all Palestinians from Gaza. 56% supported expelling Arab citizens of Israel as well. You know, the Zionists are always telling you it's the only place in the Middle East where people live in harmony. The Arabs have equal rights. Everyone lives in peace, right? Support for mass killings in biblical terms. 47% agreed that the Israeli army, when conquering an enemy city, should act akin to the biblical conquest of Jericho, i.e., killing all of its inhabitants. Perception of Palestinians as the enemy, the Amalek doctrine. Among those who believe Palestinians represent a contemporary Amalek, biblically mandated eradication, 93% believe the command to erase Amalek still applies today. If you remember, early on, Netanyahu gave a speech invoking Amalek. He literally used the word Amalek to describe the enemy, to describe Palestinians. Broader acceptance of genocidal ideation. Another poll from blue chip firm Geocartography, this is from May 2025. That's the one that was going around not too long ago. Similarly found 82% backing ethnic cleansing of Gaza and 47% endorsing total annihilation strategies. So Netanyahu, this is really part of the core contradiction in the Zionist argument. They argue it's the only democracy in the Middle East. Okay, well then Netanyahu, being as successful as he has been in Israeli politics, reflects the attitudes of the majority. Does it not? If it's a democracy, then Netanyahu represents that population. And as we see in polling, indeed he does. Here is an interview with a settler that just kind of started making the rounds online.
Is why do you steal more and more Palestinian land?
Why what?
Do you Israelis or Jews steal more and more Palestinian land?
Okay, because we're not stealing, it's ours. It was our birthright in the Torah. God gave it to us and it's our land and we were here. And the fact that we were thrown out doesn't mean it wasn't ours, and it's ours because it's our given God right.
Okay, so let's take that to let's pretend there's a situation where there's a Palestinian living on some hill or there's a village here. Is it your right to go just take it away from him and you live there?
I don't think so. We don't take away land from Palestinians, but they can't.
Oh, that's what they think. That's the idea.
But they can't prove it's theirs any more than we can prove it's ours. And I don't think that's ever done. That Palestinians are knocked off their land. The opposite is done. Jews are taken off of their home right land more often.
Can you give me an example of that part?
Oh, Gush Katif.
Oh, in Gaza.
Right. Okay, that's one. And in our backyard, there's different areas that keep being built and being knocked down.
Jewish areas.
Jewish areas. Monthly.
Okay. Now, you might say, oh, well, this is a crazy settler, but look at that poll. Look at that poll. I in my own experience, I very recently debated an American, very libby left Democrat Zionist. They said the same shit basically without the God part. Well, you can't kick people off land that belongs to you.
Right.
This is what they believe. This is what they believe.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
if they're secular, which most of them are, if you say, well, you're basing this on the Bible, they'll start talking about the Canaanites and no, they have a whole justification. If they are secular, their argument will be they are the first people to ever settle that land, so it's theirs,
Right.
including the West Bank. They if you really push a Zionist, they believe in greater Israel, because if you believe in Israel, why would you not believe in greater Israel? It's the same justification. The land belongs to you, and these people are interlopers. And they all believe the land without a people, people without a land formulation. There were no Palestinians. That's a modern invention. They came there because when Jews started to immigrate there, they made it so good that Arabs started to move in there. They weren't there before. Like it's quite a rabbit hole if you go down it with these folks. Glenn Greenwald posted this. One of the most bizarre parts of Israel's U.S.-financed destruction of Gaza, Israel supporters in the U.S. constantly deny what Israeli officials themselves proudly admit. Israeli Minister Eliyahu said the key war aim, see, it's not just other people whose names we mispronounce, said the key war aim is not the hostages, but cleansing Gaza of non-Jews. So this is an actual Israeli official. Quote, they should be called prisoners of war, meaning the Israeli hostages. And prisoners of war are dealt with at the end of the war, he said. When you define them as hostages, the objective is first and foremost to return the hostages. But I think the hostages shouldn't be the primary goal. In the interview, the minister also called for the establishment of Jewish settlements in the Gaza Strip. Gaza should be Jewish. Once Gaza is Jewish, the Arabs there will also be better off, he said. Yeah. Now, okay, to show you how aware they are of their own crimes, Sky News, which is certainly not a pro-Palestine outlet, rather right-wing outlet, when they went on one of the food airdrops, they were not allowed to take photographs of what things looked like on the ground.
On our way to northern Gaza, where these pallets of food will be dropped from the aircraft to people on the ground. We were given quite a clear and strict pre-flight briefing that the Israelis have said we're not allowed to film any shots of Gaza from the air, and that if we do, these airdrop flights could either be cancelled or delayed. International journalists haven't been allowed access to Gaza since the war started, despite immense pressure and growing demands. And it seems they don't want us to show you images of Gaza from the air either.
Okay, and this is Thomas Keith posted this. Israel has now banned aerial filming over Gaza. You don't blacklist airspace unless the view exposes a crime. And you don't hide genocide unless you're neck deep in it. Yes, well, the Washington Post caught a ride with the Jordanian Air Force, and either they've got a different policy or they had a based pilot. But according to WAPO, they were not given instructions not to take photographs, so they did. And very quickly revealed why the Israelis don't want people seeing photographs of what it looks like in Gaza. Looks like the moon.
Yep.
Destroyed. Unlivable. You do not do this to a place if you don't want to make it uninhabitable. They always intended for Gaza to become uninhabitable, to create a humanitarian crisis, and then to use that as a pretense to ethnically cleanse the area under the guise of humanitarianism. It's for their own good. How can they live in these conditions? You're already hearing why don't the Arab countries take them? That's the eternal thing with Zionists. Why don't the Arab countries take them? But now they've created circumstances where humans cannot live there in good health. Even if the war stops tomorrow, look at that. How much toxic shit is in the ground, is in the air from bombing all of those buildings. After 9/11, they bombed 2 buildings. They had a service going and cleaning out people's air conditioner vents because there was so much toxic dust in the air. Can you imagine how toxic a place like this is? What the levels of cancer are going to be going forward among the people who are fortunate enough to survive what Israel is doing. This was always their intent. It was very clear it was their intent. Now they're taking the mask off because they're getting into the end game. This is the end game. Yep. We're just going to go ahead and annex it. It'll be better for them, as the minister said. It'll be better for the Arabs.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at, because reading that Reuters piece, they talked about what their aims were, post October 7th. We all heard it, that they wanted to essentially dislodge Hamas from power and get their hostages back. If this were simply a matter of regime change, which is basically what they were categorizing it as in the early days, you're talking about, the United States government as your benefactor and key ally. We orchestrate coups as a matter of routine. We do that all the time. So you're saying we couldn't have done that for them if their goal were simply to dislodge Hamas from power and install a government that's more friendly to Israel? We do that kind of thing all the time, right? I mean, that's what we do best from a foreign policy standpoint. We don't win wars. We overthrow governments. And so, of course, we could have done that without turning it into this. They turned it into that because that's what they wanted to do, and that's what they said they were going to do. The day of, Netanyahu said the enemy will know an unprecedented response. Well, that could have only meant this. And so it was very obvious. And now, yes, Trump is talking about Witkoff negotiating an all-or-nothing deal, meaning that they're not willing to settle for gradual hostage exchanges. They want all the hostages back. But, of course, Netanyahu insists on continuing the fighting in order to get Hamas out of power. Well, at this point, given those photos, what we just saw, that's not governable or livable no matter who's in power. So at that point, that becomes a moot question. The only reality now that, begs acknowledging is that there is no Gaza left. It is not a livable place. And, of course, that was their goal going in. And now, as you said, it's the end game. There's no more talking. We have essentially given up on brokering a ceasefire. And so now they have to just finish this off. And that's what Donald Trump said they should do. Finish the job. Well, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing.
Please clap.